What's up everybody? Welcome back to another Dazzle video. Today we are going to go over Dazzle's skill builds. What I believe is to be the best skill build for Dazzle right now and why. The goal of a skill build is to maximize Dazzle's potential impact on a game at each stage of the game. So you want to max a skill that has the most value in the early game first, and on the opposite end, you want to max a skill that has the biggest late game impact later on. In general, skill builds will change as patches change, as the meta changes, as skills get reworked, buffed, nerfed, etc. But in general, Dazzle is a hero that has a pretty flexible skill tree, so you can play around each skill. You can play around your Poison Touch, your Shallow Grave, your Shadow Wave. But I'm going to go over currently, right after the Crownfall patch, what I believe is the most optimal skill build. And really the goal here is to maximize your heal, maximize your damage, maximize your slow, your sustain, your survivability over the course of any given game. I'm going to approach my explanation by first talking about two aspects of Dazzle: cast range and Dazzle's general power curve. First, I'm going to talk about cast range. In my opinion, Dazzle is best played from a distance. The further away you can be from your enemies, the better. Dazzle is a hero that loves when enemies are hitting his teammates and not Dazzle himself. I believe he is currently best played as a spellcaster, which has right clicks built in through his Ags. The magic cast range I want to get to is 800, which is the starting cast range of Shadow Wave, as you can see here. The sooner you can get to the 800 cast range mark, the more survivable you will be. So each skill has a different starting point. Poison Touch, you can see, is a little bit smaller. This is a 500 range, and it maxes out at 800. The Shallow Grave starts at 700 and goes to 1000. And the Shadow Wave just stays at a flat 800. So part of my skill build reasoning is that I want to get to this 800 cast range mark as quick as possible. This is also a reason why the Poison Touch attack range talent is much better than the plus 1.75 mana regen talent, because you can now take your attack range from 575 to 875, which is over the 800 cast range mark. And I'll touch more on the talents a little bit later. The next thing I want to talk about in approaching a effective skill build is Dazzle's general power curve. Dazzle is a hero that is more or less a linear hero. He doesn't really have a massive power spike at level 6, 12, or 18 like other heroes. His ult just acts as a supplemental spell that makes all of his spells better. This differs from other heroes that have ultimates that spike their hero's power as soon as they reach the level. For instance, Night Stalker with his ult, Spectre with his ult, Lich with his Chain Frost, Storm Spirit zipping around with his Ball Lightning, Tidehunter with Ravage. These spells make each of these heroes much more powerful. They fundamentally change the way the hero is played as soon as you get that spell. But with Dazzle, it doesn't change it as much as the other heroes. It just buffs up the timings of all of your other spells. The only similar power spikes that Dazzle has are item timings, such as BKB, Ags, and Octarine. So because of this, we need to make sure that the spells that we level up earliest have the biggest impact on the game earlier. This is exactly why I recommend maxing Poison Touch first. Poison Touch is a very strong spell until enemies start getting BKBs or other dispels. It also gets upgraded by a lot of different ways, which makes it very valuable to level up as quickly as possible. So I have it maxed out at level 7. Poison Touch gets upgraded in 8 different ways. The first is cast range. So cast range goes up from 500 to 800. The second is effective cast range. So the distance from your first target to the last target goes up as well. Number 3 is the damage per second goes up. Number 4, the refresh duration increases, so it lasts for longer, which increases the chances that you can refresh the debuff. Number 5, the slow increases from 16% to 22%. The additional slow per hit increases from 2% to 3.5%. The number of targets increases from 2 to 8. And the cooldown goes down from 27 to 15. So it gets buffed in a lot of different ways, which makes it a really good candidate to max very early. It also has a lot of potential uses. So because the targets increases from 2 to 8, you can now reliably push waves quicker. You can take any jungle camps. Even if you stack a camp one time, you can take the camp pretty easily. So there's a lot of impact that it can have on your game, as well as the obvious teamfight implications that it has. It's also great because it benefits you more to take the level 10 talent, the plus 300 poison attack range talent. And it also makes your shard a lot better when you eventually get it at minute 15 or as soon as possible. Next, I like to max Shadow Wave. Shadow Wave is your most cost-effective spell to push waves, keep allies alive, and sustain allies during teamfights. Maxing it will decrease the cooldown, increase the heal damage, and increase the number of units hit by the spell. It's also a really easy spell to upgrade because the mana cost stays low at 75. One additional reason that it doesn't need to be maxed earlier is that it starts off at a really good cast range. So it starts off at 800, and all the other spells basically need to catch up to this 800 cast range. And lastly, I max Shallow Grave. So after getting a point in it at level 4, it's great to have 1 point in it just because it is a spell that is still valuable. It's just the least valuable to max first when compared to the other 2 spells. Shallow Grave starts at 3.5 seconds and goes up to 5 seconds. In a nutshell, you'll get the most out of your Shallow Grave the later the game gets. So at 5 seconds in the late game is much more valuable than 5 seconds in the early game. The cast range is also pretty decent. So it starts off at 700 and goes up to 1000. But since the early game doesn't have a lot of crazy burst damage, it allows you to more easily walk up and cast Shallow Grave. Even if you're standing at 800 cast range away, you can easily walk up 100 cast range and cast your Shallow Grave. I take Bad Juju at 6, 12, and 18. I don't really mess around with that. I think it's still an extremely valuable spell that speeds up all your other spells, buffs up all your other spells, and it's just an overall great spell to have, even though it does not have the item cooldown manipulation anymore. And now we're going to quickly go over the talents. At level 10, I would always go for the 300 poison attack range talent. And this is purely because of the attack range, the range that we want to stay away from our enemies at. So our attack range built in is 575, but with the poison attack range, it's 875. So this synergizes really well with all our other spells. By level 10, we're going to be operating at 800 range for most of our spells. And so we want to be able to hit our opponents from over 800 range away. And this talent lets us do that. And I really only consider taking the 1.75 mana regen talent when I'm playing a position 5 support or position 4 support, and I'm extremely behind in the game, and I have to find a way to stay on the map, and I'm running out of mana, and I can't secure any Lotus pools or anything like that. At level 15, I like to take the plus 45 Shadow Wave heal damage. This will buff your Shadow Wave by around 30%, and Shadow Wave is going to be max level at this point. If you play Core Dazzle, you'll have your Ags at this point, which incentivizes buffing your Shadow Wave as much as possible. And even without the Ags, let's say you're playing Support Dazzle, this talent will help you push waves, take camps 30% faster, and have that much more heal and damage in team fights. I find that the damage output is much more than the plus 80 attack speed. I would only take the plus 80 attack speed if there is something like a Tombstone, a Phoenix Egg, Weaver Bugs that you have to kill quickly. The level 20 talents are 50-50. I personally like to take the plus 60 Poison Touch DPS, but I can also argue for the plus 200 heal on Shallow Grave End. The plus 60 poison touch DPS more than doubles your poison touch damage output. So if you're getting any value out of this spell, I would take this talent. Whenever you have the opportunity to buff one of your spells by more than double, I would take it. So plus 60 poison touch DPS is a lot of damage that you're going to be dishing out, especially because you're hitting multiple heroes multiple times during team fights. The plus 200 shallow grave heal is really good if you're playing with heroes like Huskar, Faceless Void, Slark, Troll, even like a Luna with Satanic. Any hero that really survives and thrives off of really low HP and can turn the fight even with low HP. I would really consider taking this talent if during the team fights of the game, you really think that you need a little bit more heal. Your carry is always this close to getting his BKB off, or this close to getting his Satanic off, or this close to getting his ult off. I would consider taking the heal. Otherwise, I would take the Poison Touch DPS talent. Additionally, the Poison Touch DPS will help you push waves a lot faster. It'll help you jungle, and this is kind of the talent that helps you take Ancients. Even if you're a support player, you can start taking Ancients with this talent. At level 25, I like to take the 0.5 Bad Juju armor reduction increase for the most part, but sometimes I can consider taking the plus 40% Poison Touch slow. Against most lineups, the armor talent is the better talent. Generally speaking, this talent becomes more valuable the more spells you cast. So if you have something like an Octarine Core, an Ags, this synergizes really well with those items. And at this point of the game, everybody has dispels. So having a buff on Bad Juju, which cannot be dispelled, is really, really valuable. In some cases, the Poison Touch slow can be viable, especially if you're going against a melee carry, it can be very good. You can force your enemies to pop their BKB early or use their dispels prematurely. Since Dazzle has a really low cooldown at this point, you're going to be able to cast Poison Touch again and slow them. It's really, really rare for any kind of slow to be almost tripled. So this is going to effectively make your Poison Touch starting slow percentage from 22% all the way to 62%, which is insane and unheard of. So this is why this talent can be considered. But for the most part, I like to take the Bad Juju talent. But that's it for this video. I hope you all have a great day and good luck on your next games as Dazzle.